We're already getting to the good stuff.
Yeah, let me know what you think of the volume on your mic. I'm happy to make changes.
Yo, 1, 2. This is good. I think my just general volume can come down a hair. Yeah, that's better.
Absolutely. Hey, cheers.
Cheers. There's diversity for you and modern art for me.
That's a painting that my uncle did. He has a wide portrait series of abstract homes. I actually have a tattoo of one that most of the series is floating houses above landscapes. I don't know what his necessary intent was, but he took that same theme and kind of went a little bit more abstract for a certain color series. But
very cool. Yeah, I like it.
Dudley motherfucking Taft, what's going on, brother?
How you doing?
Thanks again for taking the time,
Do
man.
you prefer Matt or Matthew?
I go by Matt most of the time.
Matt, okay.
Facebook for the differentiation of my personal life and my personal espousings. I went with the full name, like my mother would like.
Right on.
Yeah, man. Hey, are you born and raised Cincinnati?
Pretty much, yeah. I was born in Washington, D.C. and moved here when I was about 6 months old and lived here until I was just turned 9.
Okay.
And then I came back 47 years later.
No shit.
Or 37 years later. I'm not that old. Fuck.
And in the interim, where'd you go to?
Philadelphia, Houston, Indianapolis, Connecticut, Southern California, Seattle.
Okay, Jesus Christ, man. And was this just like based on your touring schedule, your creative schedule, where you wanted to end up?
Well, I didn't play guitar until I was 12, 13. But no, my parents got divorced. My stepdad would start retirement living communities. So we lived in Philadelphia for about a year and a half because he kind of got the, plate spinning, and then he found an opportunity in Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
So I moved down there in 78, and I was there through the end of 79 or close to it, and then Indianapolis, another opportunity. And then I went away to boarding school in Connecticut. But touring really had nothing to do with it. I went to college outside of L.A. at Pitzer College, one of the Claremont colleges out there in Pomona. And I lived in the sort of L.A. area for a couple of years during the sort of hair metal death days, 1988, 9. And then summer of 90, I moved to Seattle.
Cool. And
it was a great time to move there and be part of the scene. So that was nice. But no, I was in, the bands that I was in and signed and on the road and all of that stuff. It was all Seattle, and then Seattle just got too crowded, man. So
that's fascinating. What year did you feel like it was too crowded and time for a change?
Well, I left in 2011, but I probably should have left in 07 or 08, kind of spun the wheels for about 3 years, and it got kind of tough, a couple of young kids, young girls, and just right on the cusp of middle school, and everybody was moving out there for work at Microsoft, Amazon, Nintendo, all of those affiliated tech businesses, and so it just got swamped. And they never, the Seattle area, people never put the tax money into mass transit. So the traffic was just horrid, and if you look at Seattle on a map, there's a lot of water everywhere. So there's some choke points, and it just wasn't the fun, cool, amazing city that it was in the early 90s. It was a lot like Cincinnati. You could, go see a band, go downtown, park on the street, you kind of like get to know everybody from going somewhere a couple of times. Oh, I saw you the other day. What's your name? What's going on? And make friends. And then it just got kind of diluted, just too many people, and I was married with kids in the house, and I need to take care of them. So we actually moved to North Carolina, Chapel Hill, for almost 2 years, and they hated it there.
They did, but you didn't?
No, I loved it.
I was gonna say most people don't leave that part of the world. Like the Carolinas have the Midwestern appeal, but the South's weather,
Yeah, we were right there in the Piedmont. The weather was amazing. But culturally, all of my girls, all they ever knew was Seattle, including my wife. She had never been out of Seattle. So the culture shock was a little much. And we had been visiting my family here. I got a lot of family in Cincinnati. So they liked the looks of Cincinnati, and I was like, oh God, I guess I'm gonna fucking move back here, man. So they basically, it was an intervention style. They sat me down. It was kind of fun, and they're like, Dad, what? We don't like it here anymore. We want to go back to Seattle or to Cincinnati. Well, I'm like, I'm not going back to Seattle. So.
Yeah. So why was Cincinnati kind of like something you didn't want to do again?
Well, Cincinnati's not really me, I'm very, I guess, West Coast. I'm very Seattle, I suppose. I don't really fit in. I'm not like golf club finance guy,
Midwestern dad,
Yeah, my family has a reputation here. My family's been here for like 9 generations, and that's all great and stuff, and there's some political side and business side, but it really has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And there is a bit of a stigma, or not a stigma, but people sort of prejudge, oh, he's a Taft, so, I figured he's, A, B, and C, and it's like, well, that's just not me, and I don't really care about any of that stuff, So that was I guess the reason that I didn't want to live here. Besides, when I was younger, I wanted somewhere it was happening, on the cutting edge of rock and roll and society and stuff. And I found that in the West Coast. But, like I was saying, it just got too crazy. And as you get older, your priorities change. And I want to make sure my girls had a good experience in middle school and high school, and the schools around here are great.
Yeah.
And it's like I was saying Seattle was, it's like you could drive downtown, you can kind of park on the street. Cincinnati really has a lot to offer. I mean, I love, all the music venues. We have our own symphony,
Yeah.
and ballet and all this stuff, and, culture. There's a deep history of culture in Cincinnati. It's really kind of like a West Coast city in the Midwest.
It was America's most western city at one point. That's why we're the Queen City for a lot of literature at that point in time, as we start to push out that way.
Before the railroads, Cincinnati was a big deal. It was the 4th biggest city, or one of the 4 biggest cities in the U.S. in the late 1800s. At least that's what Wikipedia says.
And as someone that's had family members in this town almost since then, it's an odd expression of individuality when you are constrained by what your family does, in the eyes of the public, and what people assume that you would do for the community based on what they've done. Like they almost have a bit of your capacity in their hands in that kind of a way.
Well, whatever. It's sort of a prejudgment stuff.
For sure.
But when I did move here, I was in my mid 40s, so I had already, basically established who I was and what I do. And, when people look at me, they realize he ain't from here, or you sure you don't look like one of us, So that was fine. And to me, Cincinnati is good. It's kind of I look at it as a smorgasbord. I can pick and choose what I want to do, who I want to hang out with. Once my kids got through school, it wasn't like, soccer practice with all the other parents and everything, because I didn't quite fit in, and but that's fine. I don't really care, honestly. I got plenty of friends all over the world, all over the U.S. I'm quite happy. And it's funny, if in my neighborhood, if there's a party, down the street, it's, all the country club people and finance people wearing tweed jackets and all that kind of shit. And you come to my house, and people wearing rock T-shirts, and it's like my flight instructor, and my guys that I'm in bands with.
Yeah.
And, there's people I just ran into along the way, and so that makes me happy, and I really like where I live, and I'm quite happy here. It's a good place to be. It's a good base to have to go different places.
Well, I think our city, at least in my own exposure in the last couple of years, is very fortunate to have a class of bluesmen that are really outside of, I wouldn't say, the scene, but outside of the caliber of what the Cincinnati music scene has really created over the last couple years. Between yourself, Noah Witherspoon, Scotty Bratcher. I mean, there's just some killer players that guys like Mike and whatnot, and hopefully this program are hoping to continually turn people on to, because just because we have a lot of rooms to see music doesn't mean the experience when you go in there makes you want to go see more music. You need to reciprocate to fans and listeners that it's worthwhile to go out on a Monday night and go find something to do. If you're going to go down to Mansion Hill and see the Blues Jam or something like that,
Right.
You need to make sure that the talent makes people feel like, oh, this proposition's too good to miss,
I suppose so.
Yeah.
Although it's tough around here.
It certainly,
I'll tell you.
there's so much going on at times, and I find that kind of shocking, Feels like the scene can be oversaturated, especially in the cover band department, and I don't want to put, too much negativity in that world, but when there's guys like yourself that are, how many songs are on Guitar Kingdom? There's 11 tracks on there right
11,
now.
yeah.
I'll spin it this morning. It's like, how many songs go into writing an 11-song album? Probably 20 or 30. It's like you're someone that's day in, day out, kicking the door in on that craft. And it's like, I don't want to hang around the guys making backing tracks for a top 40 tune that most of it's downloaded offline. That doesn't scratch my itch in the same way that going in and hearing, like you talking about starting guitar at 13. There's some autobiographical parts of this album that you don't get on the first listen, so you come back for the second listen.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, and it is inspired largely by, my early teens, and that feeling that I got playing guitar, because it was a way different world back then.
And what was your first interaction with the guitar like?
Well, I was living in Houston. My neighbor had an acoustic, but he also had a trampoline and a basketball hoop. So I'd just go over. He was a little older than me. I'd just go over and hang out over there and jump on the trampoline and shoot some hoops and stuff. And we would hang out. And there was like a guitar in the corner. I'm like, wow, that's cool. And I kind of picked it up. I had no idea what I was doing. And he said, hey, when I'm at work, you can come in and play it anytime you want. I was like, really? Okay. So I did and figured out a couple little things, just like on the low E string. And then I just told my mom, coming up on my 13th birthday, I'd really like a guitar, So she was very pleased and very, supportive and helpful, and got me an acoustic, and off I went. You know? So
self-taught from the beginning.
It's funny. In Houston, I had a lesson, and they were teaching me how to read notes, and it was like Twinkle Little Star or some shit. And I'm like, this fucking sucks. I don't want this. Meanwhile, I'm listening to, ZZ Top and, Ted Nugent and Led Zeppelin on the radio and all, lead guitar all over the place, and I wanted to play that. So luckily, shortly after my birthday, we moved to Indianapolis, and we lived north of Indy in a little town called Zionsville. And on this telephone pole, there was a number, guitar lessons, and so my mom called it, and the guy, Rob Swaney was his name, understood immediately what I wanted to do. So he taught me a bar chord, taught me a scale, and then we started picking apart songs and how does this work. And then, it's like, well, you got to learn the theory now. So kind of work that in, but in a way where I was motivated, it's like if you can play a power chord on the guitar after, picking it up for a month, then, you're kind of like, wow, look at this, So that was really, really important to get the ball rolling. Because, I wanted to be like one of the guys on the posters on my wall, a Jimi Hendrix or an Eric Clapton or a Ronnie Wood or a, Richie Blackmore or something. That was kind of my goal.
And so did you develop your chops in the blues world at that
No.
age? That didn't come till
No,
later.
and calling me a blues man is a misnomer. I'm totally a rocker.
Yeah.
But the rock that I listened to growing up was heavily influenced by the blues.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a great example. Machine Head, the album by Deep Purple. There's 3 straight up blues songs on there. You know, Pictures of Home and Lazy and Maybe I'm a Leo. You know, it's very bluesy rock. You know, and of course the early Stones, very bluesy stuff. And you know, I mean, even Hendrix, Red House, you know, it's like that's just the 1-4-5 blues. But I didn't really know what blues was. I just knew what that sounded like. And, you know, the big songs on the radio were Free Bird and Stairway to Heaven and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so I just I wanted to be able to play solos like at the end of Free Bird, you know, or learn the solo to Stairway to Heaven or learn how to play the acoustic intro. And I didn't really think of it as blues at all, you know.
Yeah.
But as I got older and after I was sort of did my run with the rock bands in Seattle, and the writing was on the wall that the rock scene was declining, I thought, well, I just want to play, you know. So I was, you know, kind of at a crossroads or something. I just thought, you know, I really like ZZ Top stuff, you know, which is rock and blues, basically. I mean, great, you know. If you want to study how to do sort of bluesy stuff with twisted turnarounds instead of the usual 1-4-5, ZZ Top is a great place to start, you know. So I thought, well, I just, you know, a friend of mine was like, yeah, we're going to do a ZZ Top tribute band. I'm like, well, fuck, that sounds cool. Let's do that, you know. I knew I'd just do it for a while and it'd be fun. And then I realized, holy shit, man, I'm playing 2 sets, you know, at this club, playing lead guitar all night. This is amazing. Instead of being in a rock band, being one of 5 bands, and you get a 30-minute set or a 35-minute set, you know, and at that point, you know, the show was over, basically, and so you'd have 5 bands at a club, and the crowd would be the other bands and their girlfriends and hangers-on and, you know, dudes, and it was kind of sad, you know, so suddenly I'm like, well, this is cool, I like this, and then I, you know, started slowly writing songs, but it's still kind of hitting the blues repertoire. I learned some, you know, Freddie King and you know, Albert King and you know, sort of the blues canon without being too, you know.
Yeah.
I call it poopy pants blues. You know, you know, it shuffles all fucking night. Oh, come on, man. You know, a little Stevie Ray Vaughan, and we played some ZZ Top and stuff. But I started writing my own stuff. I'm like, well, there was a song called Backdoor Man, you know, and the Doors covered it, right? They didn't write it. And I thought, well, I'm going to do that. So I just sort of rewrote it, and people really liked it. You know, I'm like, well, this is cool, you know, so I can kind of like put my own spin on a cover tune by re-engineering it. I don't really want to do a straight-ahead cover. I do very few of those. I mean, on the last record I did, Quitter Never Wins by Tinsley Ellis. Mm-hmm. And I play it, you know, kind of like it was written, but I do my own version of it, and I put a key change in the middle, and, you know.
Is that during the guitar solo it takes that key change?
Yeah.
I walked away from my phone when I was listening to that part, but I was like, there's nothing like the lift of a guitar player who's already ripping, and then they just twist you up a whole step, and you're like, oh.
That was a half step.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you know, or like I'll do Heartaches or Nickels, but really that's a Warren Haynes song. It's a really well-constructed tune, and it's just so great on its own. But I very rarely will just do a straight cover. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I put them on my albums because, you know, I do play some of these live, and it's maybe a good gateway for some people to go, oh, I like this guy's cover of his, I love Tinsley Ellis' Tinsley Ellis song, and let's check out the rest of the stuff. And it's like, you know, the whole album isn't covers, it's my stuff, it's what I do, and it ranges from bluesy to just, you know, fuzzy Seattle sludge rock, you know. But the way I play guitar, rock people will say it's bluesy, and bluesers will say it's rock.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm in the right spot.
For sure. Well, I think everyone does what they need to digest their own influences, and where you end up is kind of just it's up to the joy of what you're doing.
Yeah.
But at the top of that album, like on Black and Blues, you have such an interesting turn on like a typical 12-bar kind of line. It's like, what are you doing at the intro of that song? Like as you're walking, like instead of doing like the poopy pants blues like you're talking about,
Yeah.
it's thump, you kind of change it so it has like almost like a mixolydian, like kind of like a dominant 7 feel every time you walk around the progression.
Sure, yeah, it's and it's if you dice it up, it's in E. Well, I tuned down a half step E flat, but if you just think of it as E, there's a G sharp in there, and there's a flat 7, and so you got major third, flat 7, natural 6. So that's your mixolydian mode, I guess. And I don't know, the chorus thing just, I just don't like doing the typical stuff, and so that kind of worked for me. And I like the 5-1 thing, and if that's in there, but it needs to the blues, if it's going to continue as a genre, really needs to find inspiration and new, needs some new life in it.
And is there anyone that you think really does that well right now?
Well, I mean, if you listen to the Black Keys, I mean, it's very bluesy and very inspired. Oh God, I don't know. I mean, I like Jack White as well, because he's, it's bluesy, but it's kind of chaotic and crazy. And oh God, I don't know. I don't really listen to a lot of that stuff, really. But I mean, Queens of the Stone Age for me is like one of my favorite rock bands. It's not blues at all, but you might hear some of that influence in what I'm doing, and so I mean, I don't know.
So when you stepped out of rock band culture, was that the first time you started writing your own bucket of material, or had you kind of been doing that your whole life?
Oh yeah, I've been I'm a songwriter since day one. Day one. I mean, sir, my 6 months into having a guitar, I already had a song. And I don't know. It's just the way my brain works. I'm always about the next 5 songs in my mind. Once I kind of finish an album, it's just kind of, okay, there you go, okay, and then, what's next?
Yeah.
And sometimes people are like, well, slow down. Like, why slow down? And then when it's time to pick the repertoire for a tour, or some shows, so I go back, well, I think that one's pretty good, maybe that one. Oh, yeah, I kind of forgot about the tune on that. Let's do those. And then you find some things that, that work, but I'm really not about, I mean, if you ask me to play a song from my catalog, I might not even remember it, know? So I just kind of, I like the process of the writing and coming up with stuff and trying to make things sound fresh and different.
Yeah. So as you go through the album cycle, when it comes to touring and things like that, is that something you really enjoy doing, or is that just something that's like, it's a byproduct of writing the music?
Touring?
Yeah.
Oh, touring is amazing. Yeah, live for that shit. Are you kidding me? I've had some of my, greatest professional moments of my life on stage, And you just kind of like, your brain kind of goes, yo, dude, check this out. And, you wrote this, the crowd's going nuts, or they're singing along, or they kind of know, and it's nice having a bunch of albums. Hey, this song's off my 3rd album. It's called, whatever. And people are clapping like, what the fuck, that? Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that dude bought my CD a couple years ago. Yeah, that kind of thing. So that's very nice. And, me doing it all myself, it's even that much more enjoyable, because I was always the guitar player in the band. I was always the Keith Richards, and there was a Mick Jagger lead singer guy,
Yeah.
But now I'm like the Jimi Hendrix, or the guitar player singer guy in a 3-piece, and it's a way different deal.
That Guitar Kingdom album cover is badass because you sit on a throne of your own bag and material and catalog and the fulfillment of having people come to a show and recognize that and admire it and hold it as personally sacred in the times where you're not there. So these moments where you're together is just the ultimate fulfillment, man. Like, where would you say was the most surprising place to be like, I got fans here? Like, since when?
Oh God, Poland maybe. I mean, Poland. You could just stop that. What was the most surprising place, and that could be the end of that sentence, and the answer would still be Poland. It's a really weird place, but I guess Germany was always the place that I really wanted to break into because they're very loyal fans there. They're discerning. They're more discerning than other European countries, and maybe more like the U.S. in that regard. Because it's funny, you'll be in Europe and you're sitting in a cafe and they'll play a Metallica song, and then it's like an Elton John song after that. You're just kind of like, what the fuck's going on here? And then like, you'll hear a Johnny Cash American Recordings tune, and then it's 99 Luftballons or something. It's like, who the hell? But it's just a different way of looking at it. We're so, we pick a lane here in the U.S. So we're listening to classic rock or, indie rock or Americana or, blues rock or blues or whatever. And in Europe, it tends to be just all over the board. Except Germany, they really like the blues rock. And so that's been the hardest nut to crack for me, but it's been the most rewarding place to build a following.
Yeah. And when was the first time you kind of dabbled in the international market thing? Like, started planning the logistical hell of going over there, with a bag full of records to flip?
January of 2012 was my first time over there, and I had 7 shows in the Netherlands. And I had no idea what it was going to be like. I talked to fellow musicians, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's amazing over there. You got to go." And just made it sound like this, fairy tale land and everything. And oh yeah, and weed's legal. And this is back in 2012 before it became legal over here. And because it's the Netherlands, and people talk funny, but the shows were great. And the first show I played was at this place called Cafe Rock in a town called Enschede, and it was absolutely packed. They were smoking cigarettes in there and blowing it in my face. Like, fuck.
Christ.
Yeah. But they went crazy. They just loved it. And I just thought, damn, this is, so I was living in Seattle at the time. And I had a good following there and great shows. But this was bizarre and weird and different in a way that was very delicious.
Yeah.
And so
delectable experience.
I'm just like, I left and I'm like, how soon can we go back there? So I just slowly worked on it. And over the past, 11 years, done 15 or 16 tours. And it's been, pretty amazing. Just very slow and very hard. But I do have some good friends over there that help me get shows and help me along the way, because I do everything myself. I have no management. I have no international booking agency. It's like I got no dude over here in the Netherlands will get me some shows, and this guy over here in Germany will get me some shows. This guy in Poland will get me some shows. Now I got people in France, and I got a guy in Spain now. I don't have any organized big booking thing, so it's been a slog, but it's been one of the most rewarding things I've ever done professionally.
Yeah. What advice would you give to artists about maintaining those kind of booking relationships?
I mean, there's the only real secret to being good at anything applies to any. You can be a manager of a tire store, or you can be a musician. It just comes down to the same thing. Just be reliable, trustworthy, show up on time, and do good work. Don't be a dick.
Yeah.
It's really that simple. And when I go play somewhere with my band, even if the crowd isn't big, I'll get comments on, like, the promoter will say, "Well, sorry there weren't more people here, man. You guys are great." And, we don't cause any problems. We're not there to start a fight. I'm not complaining about anything, even though I could. Like, what the fuck? Oh my God, what the fuck is this, dude? But you just can't. This is what you love to do, and this is what you get, and you make the best of it, or just go home. There's so many people that want to do this. And so, and it's not an effort for me. I enjoy doing this. I genuinely do. And I make friends wherever I go. I have lots of friends all over the world now. It's amazing. But you just have to keep at it. It's consistent. If you catch something lucky or catch fire with something, that's great. You lucked out. But you just have to keep going.
Yeah.
And there have been times when, I had one German agent for a minute, and he's like, "Yeah, I can't get you any shows. It's a 3 shows, want to cancel the tour." I'm like, ain't no fucking way I'm canceling the tour. So I called some other dudes I know and threw some shows together and made it a good tour. You just have to keep going. Don't take no for an answer. Just do it.
Well, the resiliency that it takes is sometimes lost on people because everyone has a grass is greener mentality. The moment that those tour dates go up on your website, guys start wondering, why can't I have tour dates like that? And they don't realize the amount of just pure effort and trust that you put back into the system. Not only do they trust that you're going to show up on time, but you trust that you're going to make anything happen that needs to happen to get there. And it's just, especially for fans over there, why do I keep listening to his records? Because he's coming back, and I like his shows. I'll buy the T-shirt in the meantime because I want him to know that we love him in Stockholm or wherever it's going to be,
Yeah, that's kind of how it works, and it's been consistent enough now that, especially in Germany, the nut has been cracked. Thank God. It took a long time. Seriously, it took like fucking 10 years and 8 years to really get in there and get some decent shows, because there's a lot of bands that play over there, and then you got to really put on a great show. And, I got nominated Best Guitar European Best Guitar Player by the European Blues Society in 2017, which for me was a big feather in my cap because, people are starting to take notice, they like the way I play guitar solos and structure my sets and my songs, and it paid off. And man, it is a lot of effort and it's a lot of money. And, the thing is, thank God I do other things to make money, because I couldn't support a family on this shit. It's a bummer, after the internet sort of killed the, physical distribution sales, the cassettes and CDs and to a certain extent vinyl still, a part of it, but that took all the money out of the music business. Now everything's streaming, and you really can't make any money off of streaming. It's pretty terrible. And even if you have millions and millions of plays, you don't get much money. It's kind of fucked.
Yeah. Well, I did the math the other day. Like I got a new EP coming out that I hand printed the CDs. I just ordered some blanks on Amazon because I can't invest a lot of cash into physical copies because people walk up and they take them. I advertise a price on them, but people walk up and take them because they assume music is free. And
they steal your CDs.
Pretty much steal my CDs. And it's one of those things that, as if I'm going to pick a fight there, if you want it, I want you to go home with it more than anything.
Yeah.
But if you see my efforts, I hope that you reciprocate in a way that helps me do it another day rather than taking what you want to take. And I think it's one of those thoughtless things that people somewhat do. And the streaming is just so odd because there's this agreement between us and these platforms that I'm going to license you this material that you can use for your commodity. And the first thing they do is they pay off their big whales of artists, and then they take the rest of that revenue and they start to pay off, by a percentage amount for streams, and it doesn't quantify the work that goes into it. So you got to figure out how to make your recording time cheaper, and you have to figure out how to make your records in a way that doesn't feel like it financially gouges you, so you can step up and do it again, even if that one isn't the monumental success we all hope to have with the next record and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. Peter Frampton said one time you would tour to support a record, but now you make a record so that you can tour, because that's the only way you can make money.
Yeah.
No. So it's sort of turned on its head, and look, new cars don't have CD players. The CD is dying. Yeah, it's pretty much done, actually, but there's more of a tail on that with the blues rock thing. I've found, so I go over to Europe and they still buy CDs, and they're crazy, But
do you get them manufactured over there, or do you ship them over?
Oh God, don't have them made over there. No, because if you do a cover song, it's just so the regulations and everything. I made they're restrictive over there, so you want to make it here and ship it over. I made a vinyl version of my album Summer Rain in the Netherlands, and I had to pay Booma, which is their performing rights organization's, 400 euros. I made 300 albums. 400 euros because that was to go to the songwriters on the album. And I was the only songwriter, and that was 3 or 4 years ago, and I've never seen that money. It's just kind of fucked. And then if you have a bunch of covers on there, it's just a nightmare, the licensing. Here, you just go to the Harry Fox agency online. I'm making 1,000 CDs or something. You just put in 1,000 copies of whatever the song is, and you pay the fee. It's not a lot of money. It's like $150 or something like that. And then you're legally you're buttoned up, and just mail them over there. It increases your per unit cost, especially on the vinyl, which is heavy to ship.
Heavy and warpable.
I mean, the packaging is usually pretty good. I've had good luck with that. So
that scares me to ship anything like that. Like, do you take a guitar over when you do that? You take a guitar and a pedal board? Like, what's the pack like when you're going to go do a 10-day tour in Europe?
Well, I'll tell you now, I have a complete backline over there that I own personally.
Nice.
I started borrowing an amp, bringing a guitar. So I bring a Strat because I'm a Strat guy, but I play Les Pauls. I love Les Pauls. But I would borrow Les Paul. I would borrow gear and backline, and just sort of, borrow it. And then, it's like, I'm going to leave. I bought a little amp. I'm just going to leave it here. Obviously, I'm going to take the fucking amp home,
Yeah.
And so after all the tours, now I have 4 guitar amps. I've got 2 bass amps, got a bass cabinet. I have my own drum kit. I got all the cymbals. I do need, next time I need to get a China when I'm over there. But
someone's get this man a China cymbal, please.
But, and I've got, powered PA speakers, and I have full pedal board over there. I even left a Klon. I have an original Klon. I left it over there.
Who is this person you trust so much to have this gear? I'm sure a good friend, hopefully. But
oh yeah, he's Dirk Osterhaus. He's my booking agent over there now, and he's got a little garage. But it's been, and I have a really good Dutch friend, and I borrowed his drum kit like for 10 or 11 tours, and there's no cases, and they were just destroyed. So 2 years ago, I bought him a drum kit, and I bought myself a drum kit, and I know Walfredo Reyes Jr. is a great drummer who lives in Kentucky now, and he got me a deal with DW. So I basically got 2 drum kits for about, $3 or $4 grand or something. But it was time to pay the piper. And so now actually I'm looking for a house in Europe to keep my shit, but also because I like going over there. And if I have a house, like say in Spain or something, I'm kind of sniffing around now. I can just be like, hey, you know what? I got a house in Spain, and just let me know. And I'll just, my drummer now is from England that I play with over there, and you can get, like a bass player from Ireland, and just zip instead of, having to pay all the fees, everybody coming over, so I can be quicker, more nimble, with that. So, and that's sort of the evolution of the thing. So now I bring one guitar over, and I'm kind of thinking, well, I should just leave a Strat over there. So, because traveling on an airplane with a guitar is always a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's always a question when you step up to that gate. Are they going to pink tag me, or are we going to be okay with this? And, like, I can't imagine the international.
Oh, yeah, well, they'll give me a pink tag. Okay, yeah, no problem. And I'll just fucking put it in my pocket and just walk in, put it in the overhead bin. And
yeah. Got to get priority, baby. You got to get on there early.
Well, and then that's why I would get, economy comfort or something, just so I can get on a little sooner. And then I stand up, If I didn't have a guitar, it wouldn't matter. You can just get in your seat with your briefcase, you're fine. But with a guitar, it's like, you need to be at the front of the line so you can get the pick of the overhead bins, because everybody's squashing everything in there. And then it's just, it's tough in the U.S. And in Europe, they're a little nicer about it. Oh, you have a guitar? Oh, we'll put it up here in the closet. In U.S., like, oh, you can gate check that. No, it'll fit in there. No, I don't want you putting it in there. I'm like, well, it'll fit in this closet over here. One, and they're kind of grumpy about it. Put it in the fucking closet.
You're like, I'm pretty sure I took this exact plane back over here. Like, please, just let me make this happen.
I'm a musician, not a criminal.
So, did those experiences make you want to fly, or when did you start doing that?
Doing what?
You said you have a flight instructor. When did you start flying?
Yeah. Shortly after I moved here.
Okay.
I realized.
Just because Lunkin was a pimping place to be?
Well, my grandfather was a pilot. My dad is a pilot. And I just thought, well, if I'm ever going to do this, I should just do it now.
Yeah.
So I started taking flight lessons in 2014.
Cool. So how many hours you got on your belt at this point?
Almost 1,100 hours.
That's gnarly.
That's not too bad. Yeah.
Is that a different joy in your life, or does that kind of remind you of your other passions you've pursued over a lifetime?
Well, it's very different. Yeah. But it's, a lot of work. It's a lot of work, a lot of studying, a lot of tests, a lot of, rungs on the ladder, So, yeah, it was a lot of work. I mean, it's very, very different, It's very, there's not much that's creative about it, It's memorizing and knowing what you're doing and knowing what the safety procedures are if there's an emergency, and understanding how instrument flight works. So
yeah.
And after doing it for a while, it's like I kind of feel very comfortable doing it. I enjoy it now, and it's a great way to get around.
That's for sure. And I feel like I've never even pondered trying to do something like that in my life. Maybe I'll find a similar hobby that's metrically inclined, but I'm not a good math guy. But it seems like the affirmation of doing the job well. When the wheels hit the runway again and you step out of there, there's a different sense of your freedom as a person to find a hobby and to pursue the sky and do what you want in this life. And clearly you're someone that is doing what they want with this life,
Yeah, I've been lucky, just sort of like stubbornly going for it, Like when I was younger playing guitar, I think it helped me in a way socially, because I had moved so many times and changed schools, and I was always the new guy, and I'd meet a group of kids that had been in school together since kindergarten or first grade or something like that. And so, in a way it's sort of, oh, that's the guy that plays guitar. Okay, I guess I'm the guitar player now or something. So, there was that aspect of that, that sort of helped me along a little bit. But I also knew that it wasn't, ever going to make me a lot of money or anything, but I just loved it so much, and I was so stubborn about continuing to do something that I really liked, even though, my mom was very supportive and stuff, and my dad, plays banjo and piano and very musical. He supportive of that, but you better find something to fall back on.
Did you ever play banjo? Just from proximity?
I've played a little bit of banjo. it's hard.
Yeah, this tuning seemed fucked, and also
Well, it's in fifths, you
okay.
know, so.
And why does that top string start like a quarter into the neck? I've never understood that about the instrument.
Well, I never played a 5-string banjo. My dad plays a tenor banjo, and he strums it Dixieland style, you know, that kind of thing. So it's not the, you know, it's not that crap. It's so there wasn't that extra string on there, and the chords are actually pretty easy but it's, you know, it's like I don't play slide guitar much either. I just kind of do my thing. I like playing my, you know, my deal, my way, and it's not like I need to figure out how to play a fucking Chapman stick or, you know, I play 5-string bass too, and that's hard enough, you know. So
yeah, the warp of the mind that happens on a 5-string bass is a little much. But I always appreciate when guys make that. You know, anyone that goes from their primary into the multi-instrumentalist category, you appreciate your instrument so much more because you see all the other ways you could lay out these voicings. Like, I wish I had a better touch on piano because I never realized that, oh, I can have a chord on top of a chord, and those chords make something totally different than what I intended to. But it's not until you have 10 notes underneath your hands that you can really mathematically work that out, you know?
I play piano a little bit. I scored a really cool piano from one of my dad's friends who was downsizing. And so I have a Steinway made in Hamburg, Germany in 1938 during the war. Yeah, and it's a baby grand. And I mean, I got it for a couple of G's. It was pretty cheap, you know, as those things go. And I fixed it up because it needed a little bit of work, you know, ivory keys and the whole nine. But it sounds so fucking amazing, you know.
And the power of that kind of piano to sit behind that instrument, feel the depth, man.
You know, and it's funny because now I have a piano. If I play another piano somewhere, I'd like to stay in a lot of hotels. You know, it's like, oh, there's a piano there. And, yeah, fuck, this thing kind of sounds like shit, you know. It sounds like my piano. But you're right, and I've written some songs on piano. In fact, what's the first ballad called?
On Guitar Kingdom?
Yeah.
Let me look it up.
I forget what it's called. See, there's a song that I don't play live, but I wrote it on piano, and I did something with the chords on the piano that I wouldn't do on the guitar. So, yeah, Still Burning. Cool. Still Burning I wrote on piano, and I just, you know, made it work on the guitar. And the very last song on my last CD is called I Will Always Love You, and I wrote that on piano. And I was very proud that I came up with something I feel is cool on the piano, because it is, like you say, it's a different instrument. And my right hand can kind of find the chords a little bit. My left hand's like, well, I guess that's it. If I'm playing a C, there's one down there, donk. You know, I really don't know how to. And in fact, that particular thing, I played the piano on it. And, you know, there was some editing involved. Because, you know, I'm not a proficient piano player. But you lay it all out there, and I understand theory very well. Theory is, you know, not a mystery to me. You know, and then there's other things about theory that kind of get more complicated. But I know where all the notes are, I understand all the chords are, and it's just laying right there. And you kind of go, oh, you know, this is something. Or like I've played songs on the piano that I play on guitar, like a David Bowie song. I'm like, that guy, he wrote it on piano, didn't he? Or Neil Young, Like a Hurricane. You just look at it, that's just fucking, those are all the white keys on the piano. It's an A minor, which is, you know, the relative minor C. It's all the white keys, you know. No wonder I could see where he did that, you know. Or like, oh, my first chord with a black B flat. Ooh, that's nice, you know. Or E major's got that, you know. Ooh, it's got that, you know. What is it? The G sharp in there, you know. Like, you know. And you slowly kind of figure out these things and you know, realize I'm not the only one that's done this. A lot of my favorite songwriters, Neil Young, David Bowie, they wrote on both on piano and on guitar.
Well, it's interesting when
So why can't I?
Yeah, when you write something on one instrument, it fits better on the other, or vice versa. It turns you on to why the publishing is so different than the master recording. It's like the essence of the song belongs in the way that your context gets painted over with the melody. But then the master is all the fun that you get to have in terms of your live performance space and, the amazing world that we live in now with you and I being able to sit in front of a computer and layer as many times as you want with a certain guitar part.
Sure.
Actually, interesting question for you. Are most of your vocals doubled on this record? Because you have a nice, you have a higher male voice for like this type of rock, and it always has that kind of Seattle-esque, like double voiced kind of sound.
I did that on several of the songs, so I would sing it twice, and
As close as possible, kind of a thing.
yeah, oh yeah, and I do it when I track. So if I do a verse, and I know I'm going to double it, I will move the track I just did down to the other track, so I don't have to keep pressing buttons to switch the record enable, and then I'll sing it again. And if I sang it a little better than the other one, then I'll just drop the new one down and then sing it a third time. So I got two really good ones where I sang them very close together. And then I use this thing called Vocaline, and it can actually sort of mold one to the other timing wise. So, if you're going to say words with a lot of consonants in them, that kind of thing, it's really tough to get that exactly. And I did want to go for a thicker sound on some things. And then some other things I just, it's just me, and I use a little bit of the harmonizer, the Eventide.
Cool.
So plus and minus like 7 cents, a little bit, sort of the Aussie sound, if like overkill or it was overused on an album. Oh shit, what was that album called? Oh, now I'm gonna have a total brain fart.
An Aussie album?
No. This was the album they made. It was guys from Pearl Jam and Soundgarden made when Andy Wood died. Temple of the Dog.
Okay.
Temple of the Dog. That is a great album. Just, if you like Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains and all this stuff, you should go listen to that album. It's really fucking good. But anyway, that was overused there. So if you want to hear what that sounds like, that's that kind of. But if you use it just a little bit, it thickens it up. So.
Yeah. Well, I love that effect, especially on there's some Nirvana records that sound so excellent with that double. And you hear Butch Vig talking about doing that to literally everything on the record has a double. And it's just thick as fuck because of it.
Yeah.
I've been trying to, just singing into two mics at once so I can take an SM7 and make that the one that I'm going to chop on both ends and dirty up a little bit and put way in the back. But there's something about two different vocals together that are just close enough that you can feel this chemistry between them, but also the little bit dissonance
little
and fight.
Warble.
Yeah, exactly. A little sexy warble.
It has a sound.
Yeah.
It just depends. You got two distorted guitars in there and a drum smashed and bass, and sometimes the vocal needs to be sort of bigger than life, But on a song like Darkest Night or something where it's on my new album where it's just acoustic, it doesn't really need that.
The intro of that song kicks ass. That's like the big acoustic intro tune towards the end of the album, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of it skewed the feel of the song to me. It comes in ripping, and then it's such a laid back groove, and I love that, man.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a little story behind that, I suppose. If you want to hear it.
Yeah. Feed it to him, brother.
Well, it was during COVID, right? During COVID, sort of towards the end of 2020, I was kind of getting cabin fever and all right. So I, got on the computer, where can you go as an American in the world now? And it's like I see Bahamas, Costa Rica. It was British Virgin Islands and French Polynesia. I was like, ooh, that's the encompassing Tahiti. It encompasses Tahiti. Tahiti is an island in the Society Islands, but there's a string of atolls called I went to a place called Rangaroa, and it's in the Tuamotu group, and it's sort of north of the Society Islands. You know, you think Bora Bora and Moorea and Huahine and Tahiti. And so decided, fuck it, let's go there. You know, the scuba diving is amazing, and I love scuba diving. And so I just went up there, and, there was like hardly anybody there. There was this resort that could have held 200 people, and there's like 20 people there. And it's kind of funny, you sit there at a meal, and people have been cooped up for so long, so everyone's kind of looking over their shoulder for a little opportunity to say something to some people at the table next to them, to have some social interaction, because we were very starved for all this. But I digress. But anyway, so, we do our activities, me and my wife, Michelle, and do all our, whatever we did during the day, scuba dives and hikes, and kind of get ready for dinner. And of course, her hair and makeup takes longer than mine. And so I would, I had my acoustic with me. I bring it everywhere. My acoustic's been all over the world. And
that seems like such a different animal to travel with your acoustic, though, than the Strat, thin bag.
Well, let me tell you, during COVID, there was hardly anybody on the airplanes.
Fair enough.
And so that was super easy then. So I just brought it there, and I'm sitting out on this little deck, I guess you can't arrest me now. I smuggle a little weed out there and have a little puffo on the porch, and kind of get inspired, because that's sort of one of the ways that I kind of catch ideas is, kind of get a little buzzed where your eyeballs are rattling around in your brain, and you just
get a little less biased.
What's going on? And it was weird. I just found when I was there, I wrote all these bluesy things. I don't know why. I have no clue what it was, but I basically wrote that entire thing. It just came out of me. I rearranged it, but I had the whole thing, all the guitar. I didn't know what it was about yet, but I had the intro, and I just liked what I played on. I voice memoed it, and I just wanted to keep that in there, even though it does kind of change when the drums come in.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't really figure out what the feel was, but I knew the verse had boom, boom, but the intro is very different.
Yeah.
It's like, let's keep that.
And sometimes when we're playing a game of dissonance and consonants, like even in the way that we were talking about that 12 bar in Black and Blues, it's like you're playing with people's expectations, and that little bit of jarring, on top of being like the first time you hear an acoustic guitar on the album, you just sit into that pocket. It pulls you up by your shirt, and it drops you into the seat that you're going to be hanging out in. It's really cool, man.
Well, there's a lot of rockin' tunes on the record, but a good record, I still try to make an album that you can play from top to bottom, and really enjoy, and have some sort of a pacing to it, like a show. You come out bang, 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 the first, 3 songs, really kind of energetic, and then 3 or maybe 4 like that, and then calm down with a slower song, a ballad, show some range and depth and variety, and so it's important to have that on the album too. But it's also the way I write. I catch an idea, and maybe it's a slow one. I'm not going to abandon it. I'm going to, they're all little babies, little tadpoles or something, and they need to grow into what they're going to be. And then when they've grown and you've fleshed it out, then you figure out, is this appropriate for the album or not? I wrote a slow song, and it just didn't fit on the album, but it's a great fucking song. I'm very proud of it. It's unlike anything I've done. I don't know what to do with it. There's sometimes that shit happens, but really, really think, these albums should have stuff where you can just chill out. Okay, let's do it. Instead of frantic guitar soloing all the fucking time. And
I would say frantic, but I mean, you definitely take them there,
Yeah, well, I think people expect it to a certain extent, and I sure like the process of having a song that's got a really long solo in it, or really, structured, instead of just, the same Ernie's and Emily's, Ernie, Emily, over, the progression, to have it have a beginning, middle, and end, and be very different than other guitar solos. So.
Explain that. Ernie's and Emily's. What do you mean by that?
Ernie, Emily, just stock riffs.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Now there's a lot of that at the end of Freebird.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like the rock and roll dictionary. All those things, twiddlies, and that's great, and everybody plays them, and I might do one occasionally, but I really set out to develop a different vocabulary. So, if you say, hey, I was a guitar player, a lot of Ernie's and Emily's, meaning not very original.
Yeah.
And guitar solos that go on and on, if they're not original, are just fucking boring, So, each album has a longer song with more of a longer solo on it, and I really strive to make the solo interesting, like the first few Jeff Beck albums, I could probably sing you most of the, Wired, all the guitar solos on there, because they're very lyrical, they're very melodic, and, that's sort of what I'm going for when I do a longer guitar solo song.
Is he a reason you ended up on a Strat, or what kind of took you to that guitar?
It was just I probably because I had a poster. I had a poster with like 6 dudes on it. And I named them before, like Ronnie Wood playing a Strat, Eric Clapton playing a Strat, Richie Blackmore playing a Strat, Jimi Hendrix playing a Strat, and there was maybe Keith Richards with a Telly or something on there. But it's like I just gravitated towards it, and my hands are, bigger. Mm. You know what they say about a guy with big hands, right?
Big socks?
Big gloves. Yeah, so, and I like the biggerness of the scale of a Stratocaster. And so playing a Les Paul scale guitar, took some getting used to. But, it's just, Strats are very expressive. And, of course, you got the vibrato bar on there, and that's a lot of fun too, and a skill in and of itself. I do a floating tremolo, so I can bend above and below the note.
Yeah.
And I try to use the tremolo. I just use it sort of subtly. I don't do a lot of sometimes, but I'm doing dive bombs, but it's a whole different. It's another color on your palette. If you were, and Les Pauls don't, have that really. There's some humbucker style guitars with them on there or whatever, but it's just a different beast.
Yeah, well, like the microtonal aspect of someone like Jeff Beck, the notes in between the notes, and that's where his voice comes in, or else when you're just as metric as a normal guitar player is going to be, you start to find yourself sounding like other people. And folks that venture into those ambiguous kind of territories really do sound like themselves in an eerie way.
Well, I'll say early on, Buddy Guy influenced me in sort of the way you sort of, you bend the string and just take your time, and I was like, that's really valid, and that's super cool, and so that's, for me, that's part of my language, in that, if I'm playing something kind of standard, or where someone may bend to a note from 2 frets below because that's the next note, let's say the root and the flat 7, why can't you just bend from the natural 7 up to the root? Not too slow, because you don't want to, hang on the natural 7, which sounds wrong. But if you just kind of, and it's funny because I do a lot of that. I do a lot of these I bend all the time, like non-standard string bending. You know, I could sit here for, half an hour and show you all these, ways that I do these things. And it's funny because I got a review one time, this yeah, and another slide guitar song on this album, blah, blah, blah. It's like, ain't no slide, bro.
Dude,
I do not play slide. I've played slide on like one song on all my albums, or two or something, and it's really hard, and I'm not good at it, and I don't really like it,
Yeah.
Wait for a good case of tendonitis to try it again or something.
Well, it's so fascinating when slide players, like, they have a different world. They live on the opposite side of that string because it's never partitioned off the way a fret is. You get all of that in between dissonance and meat. It's like Noah came on a couple of weeks ago and was talking about just some of the ways that he slides through things, and what makes someone sound is those uncomfortable moments, and like just hearing you say like natural 7 to the 1, it's like
the tension.
Fuck, yeah.
The tension. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. When you do that, are you like a thumb wrapping kind of guitar player, or do you move that to the back of the neck when you want to have those really intentional bends?
Oh God, I don't know. I call it swinging the monkey. Because if you put your fingers on the fretboard and then you move your wrist so it's, out away from the guitar, then you can kind of, then your fingers are sort of coming down on top. But if you pull your wrist in like like you would pick up a guitar to carry it, and your thumb wraps over, that's a different thing, so I do all of the above, and I play with my thumb sometimes, like the way you would see Pete Townsend play a bar chord. Mm-hmm. I do that sometimes. Sometimes I do it the other way. I mean, I've been doing it for so long, I don't really think about it anymore.
Yeah.
But
that's a hilarious expression, swinging the monkey.
Swinging the monkey. If you think about it, it's like a monkey swinging on a
I will never forget that.
And
that's so funny.
If you're having trouble, then maybe, fretting something, maybe the monkey needs to swing out away from the neck a little bit. Or, if you want something different, to push a little harder, you want the monkey to swing in, because that gives you more the right angle to like make a big bend with your ring finger.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting comparing piano to guitar when you start to employ your thumb, because I never thought about voice leading as a young kid until I took one theory class where it was required that you at least learn a little bit about this. Mm-hmm. And it's so much more clearly intentional on a piano until you start to bring that back to a guitar, and you start playing around with, specifically your thumb is where I kind of made the aha moment, because most time it's just bar chord to bar chord. You're jumping around wherever it's going to most easily facilitate what you're doing. But now you realize that the way that you crunch in between and the way that you make one note change the underlying chord, you don't move anywhere. It's like that perfect expression, free falling of he's just going to keep this one shape, but he's going to give you the entire song under this one shape. It kind of resituates your thoughts on the boxes.
Yeah. Going back to my early guitar teacher, he taught me these chord solos, they're voice leading, so you learn, okay, well, if I'm going to play this note on top, I need to play this chord for him, and I don't know necessarily if my thumb came into play much, but I learned to play like a minor 7 in different, inversions. And that's another thing that's super important, especially if you're going to do any voice leading. And that is, if you can't play an E major chord like 7 or 8 different ways on the guitar, then you got some work to do, because it doesn't always sound the same. Sometimes the third's on the top, sometimes the third's on the bottom, sometimes it's in the middle, sometimes you're accentuating the 5, or if you have a chord with 4 notes in it, where do you put the minor 7 or the 9, and where can it be in the chord? And then if you realize, oh, well, there's the melody line for this song is, there's a minor 7 chord, but the singer's singing a 9, then suddenly you've got 5 notes, and then okay, how do you put that on top? And that was really good. And once you sort of can see where all the notes are, you can just kind of go, well, let's see, D major, here it is, there's some notes here, some notes here, some notes here for the D major chord, and make up your own little clusters. It doesn't need to be all, root, third, fifth. It doesn't need to be all those. Maybe it's just a couple.
Yeah.
No, it's maybe just the root and third. Maybe just the third and fifth. There's a lot of possibilities, which is nice because it keeps the guitar kind of fresh. And even after playing for 43 years or whatever, it's still like, oh, what about that? Look at that one.
Yeah.
Remember that one for next time.
Prince is kind of my greatest musical passion as a listener, and he has inspired a very subtractive idea of the guitar to me, where it's like most of the things I love about him are single note, single line kind of things, but it incites feeling. It's the big aha of the chord, in the same way you're talking about, like, okay, if the singer's got to sing this 9, like, what do I need to get out of their way so that note pops more? Because I grew up being a kid that's playing acoustic gigs in bars, so what's the thickest chord I can put on this bitch? And it's like, that's no fun once you got a bass player involved, because you're eating up his meat, like you're sitting in his range. And I love, like, did you play bass on this whole record?
No.
Okay.
I play bass on the demos, and then the bass player has to beat it.
Yeah, okay, nice. That's a great way to put it. Because I love when it's one person's coherent thought moving forward. Prince's lack of interruption in his musical ideas is part of the brilliance. And that's a great way of putting it. In the same way that you're moving that vocal down, you're playing to the competitive nature that we all have. It's a survival instinct, but it's an artistic endeavor, too, to say, well, I really fucking like what I played, so we're going to sit here until you play something that I like a little bit more than that. If not, well, your name's not going on the back, brother. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and the guy who played bass, Casey Williams, on this last record, is a great bass player. He's very intuitive, and we'd been playing together for a long time, so he knew kind of what I wanted, and he could hear what I was doing, but he would sort of do it in more of a bass player way.
Yeah.
Because I play bass more like a guitar player. Although I've been playing bass for so long that I'm actually okay. I really like playing bass. It's fun as fuck.
It's so refreshing to go that route.
I don't think I could do a whole gig as a bass player. It's a different set of muscles and
yeah.
But
you want to talk about tendonitis?
Yeah. Well, I like it. You just have to have a good bass.
Yeah.
It's easy to play.
Our boy Mike Reeder, I didn't know Mike Reeder played bass as well as he does until I saw him play with Noah Witherspoon recently. I was like, well, oh shit, Mike, look at that,
Nice.
So what's some of the non-musical occupations that you've really loved in life? Like you said, you've done some of these gigs to take care of your family and whatnot outside of music. Like, what are some of the other things that you've done?
Nothing very interesting, really. I mean... Oh, fuck. Well, I used to work when I moved to Seattle, I worked at a music store, which is boring.
Yeah.
I was a general contractor for a minute, and that didn't work out too well. I fixed up a house to sell, and I lost money doing it. I mean, I sold it into the tech crash of '99, which kind of sucked. And so a little voice in my head said, dude, just fucking play your guitar. I quit being a dummy.
Yeah.
And
the risk you put your hands at as a general contractor is pretty real. You
know? And I was doing a lot of hammering and stuff too, or put down a subfloor or something with a nail gun. Yeah, I know.
Christ.
It's a little scary. But I started working for this company called IQ Beats, and we did music for radio stations, so like sort of, the leading up music to, KMPS or whatever, literally like little 10-second dealios and then other needle drop stuff for people that want background music for this and that. And I've gotten a lot of my music on TV and crazy shit, everything from, Gene Simmons show to That Metal Show to Daria, extreme couponing and this weird kind of shit.
I loved That Metal Show as a kid. I loved watching Billy Sheehan take him into commercial breaks and funny shit like that.
Oh yeah.
For a young kid like that, and a show called Metal Evolution, where it's so informative for enjoying the history of these things. It's like, I didn't know what thrash was compared to grunge. It's like, clearly you can hear it, but until someone says, watch the records move, watch the bands move in the way that informs the sound and whatnot.
Yeah, those were great shows.
Yeah.
I especially miss that metal show.
Man.
That was fun while lasted. But
You ever get to meet Eddie?
no, I never met Eddie Trunk. Or maybe I did once, but it was a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Well, what a great character for the scene that just brought the appreciation to it. It's like that's the elevated version of a promoter. With this guy, he just gets to talk shop the way he wants to.
Yeah,
you know?
an extreme music nerd, very knowledgeable.
Yes, extreme nerd for sure.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting the way that the alternative routes that you take just to be a person, whether that's being a dad or being someone's partner or trying to fix a house for the first time, the way that informs your playing. It's like, I can't imagine Bruce Springsteen became the boss without having some blue collar in his life that made him approachable for that.
Sure.
And maybe his hands are a little fucked up and that's why he plays like that. I don't really know. But there's something endearing about that kind of personability that, like, I don't know your relationship to your wife, but I'm sure after many years of marriage, it's one of the greatest things to have. I'm getting married in about a month. And
congrats.
Thank you. To have someone that, as much as she loves my music career, she could give two fucks about it. You know, she's like, I like you. And someone similar to you had that guitar player identity as a thing that I knew best. It's the first thing I would lead with because it's most confident for me as a person. To start to pull that back help me become more of an artist because it's helping me disassociate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that applies to me, but you know, I met my wife Michelle at the time. I was not in a band. She did not know me from being a guitarist. So, as you know, after we got together and as I started playing more, you know, she's had to tolerate it, and you know, and she honestly doesn't really like it when I go out of town because I'm leaving her, you know. Yeah. But she realizes that it's very important for me to do my music because it makes me a better husband if I'm happy. Mm-hmm. If I'm, you know, unhappy at home because I'm frustrated because I can't, you know, express myself musically, or you know, then that's no fun, you know. But you know, I've been together with Michelle for 20 years. We've been married for 18, and love of my life, best friend. And you know, in fact, last night I'm working on demos. I had her come in and take a listen to what I was doing. You know, kind of have to push her sometimes to come down there and
yeah.
But it'll be interesting, some of the things that she says. I'll be like, God, this riff is sick. Check it out. But what were the lyrics? I'm like, I don't know. I was just going blah, 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 blah on the microphone. Like, she makes me realize you better be very careful on what you choose for the lyrics because, you know, people listen to music in different ways. And, you know, maybe it's a gross generalization, but the girls that I know listen to the lyrics first. You know, my wife's not going to get turned on by a slinky riff. You know, she'll get turned on if I'm, you know, singing about how much, you know, I love her or, I, you know, love something or something that's emotionally evocative.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's fascinating the way that non-musicians have a different bag of jargon that they bring to us, and we have to, there's encoding and decoding just like a computer. I have to figure out what you mean by that.
Oh, sure.
But you might mean something that I was just blissfully unaware of. Like I tried to mix and master this last EP because I didn't appreciate people that did that job enough that I wanted to step up to plate and eat the L and admit that I'm an amateur in that understanding, but it was so informative for me. And the first day that I was like, I am done. I'm not touching this again. I'm finished. I showed it to her. We're 30 seconds into the first song. She goes, there's too much reverb. I was like, I don't even think you know what reverb is. God damn it, Emily. Like, you're shitting on my parade. And I sat there, and I'm just, like, devastated. She's like, I'm sorry I said that. I was like, no, what sucks is you're right, and now I got to go back. Yeah. But to have a partner that's willing to stick their neck out, you know, and tell you the truth, it's like, I didn't know I wanted a woman with backbone until I got a woman with backbone. Yeah. And then I found out that she's awfully particular about some things, and that's partnership, man. But,
interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, they're going to give you, you know, or it's not that it's naive, it's just uneducated, musically educated, a view of the song, which really is, if you write a good song, you shouldn't have to understand music to love it and appreciate it. So if you can kind of get someone that's not a musician really turned on by something you're doing, and that's it. Oh my God, there's so many lessons in that idea. Like if you are playing a song live and it sounds like the record or something, but people just aren't getting into it. Maybe you just don't have the groove right, bro. Because people will respond if it's in the groove. And what I mean is, if it has that feel, like some songs are urgent and lean forward, and some really need to lean back in the pocket and feel like it's a sled pulling you. And live, you can tell if it's working. People physically react to that when it's, loud and everything. And if, we're locked with the band on doing like a shuffle or something, it just works. Or if it's something's going on, if somebody's pushing or rushing, the audience kind of like might be looking at you a little quizzically, or it's kind of like, maybe you should get a drink, something like that.
You're checking out.
Yeah, they're not quite responding to it. So, yeah, I mean, you really, our job as musicians, I think, is to make really interesting content that moves people and takes people out of, out of their everyday existence or whatever, and wash away a bit of the dust, and there's certain things that you really need to get right to evoke that feeling, in the listener.
Yeah.
And those are the important lessons to learn.
For sure. To have songs that have multiple layers of interest too. Like some folks, like you said, they're lyrics people. They like the top line, and if that connects to them, maybe they'll give the chorus more of a shot. And some people it's the guitar. But the moment that you can take their interest and have these subliminal aspects of it inform what you want them to do, whether that's to dance or to cry or to fucking headbang, it's like you're trying to convince them of something through this piece. And most of the time, just the way that involves your mind, it takes active listening and presence. That's the relief people need from life. It's the hamster wheel of, what do I got to do tonight? Is my laundry still in the washer? Did I put it in the dryer? All that and unnecessary bullshit when you're at a show. Yeah. If I can get you interested in the lyrics of this song, and then that hi-hat's making you dance, then life is so good, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. People might want to slam, rap sometimes, or early on, a lot of my rock and roll friends would slam rap. I'm like, yeah, but Dr. Dre knows how to make a fucking groove, dude.
Yes.
Listen to that. Yeah, I don't care. It's keyboard and drum machine or whatever, but it's fucking killer. It's, you can't deny that.
All of the Chronic is just so danceable, top to bottom. And what I like in that genre too is, like, sometimes when they would pull these samples, they have that warble to them. They have some dissonance where it's not this clean, full integrity melodic composition. It's just danceable. It's so repetitive that you start to forget that it's there. Or something like the Compton Whistle, just like this high frequency band that just takes you to that upper level, the way that Parliament always would, where George is going to put the 3 octaves above this, and it's just going to ring through the whole goddamn song. And you kind of like that, make something between your ears go, yeah, baby,
Yeah, exactly. The proof is in the listener, basically,
Absolutely.
All these crazy things. And it's, rap music, it really started experimenting with things and a different way of putting it together. And at first I was pissed off because it was more popular than rock and roll, but I was also good friends with the Beastie Boys. And I'm actually in the Hey Ladies video.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. And when they were making Paul's Boutique, I went to college with the Dust Brother guys, and so I lived in the same building as Yauk, and it was a neat time, and I saw what they were doing, and it was very, very creative, and super interesting to me, and it sort of opened my mind a little bit because I was listening to a lot of rock and roll and kind of maybe not branching out as much as I would have. If just left to my own devices, I wouldn't have experienced a lot of that's it's a great thing about having a lot of friends that are into different things. It's like they turn you on to something you wouldn't necessarily understand, and being good friends with the Dust Brother guys, I was like, I get this thing now. I get the whole rap deal. It's very interesting. And then I kind of got into more because they were white boys doing rap, and the first album, No Sleep Till Brooklyn and all that kind of stuff, very raw, very, very kind of rock too, in a way, and
tonally very rock,
tonally very rock.
Yeah, the vocals are very, I don't know, very 80s in that kind of a way, in a bit like 80s hair metal,
Yeah, I guess that's right,
Kind of reminds me of Rat,
Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's one of my wife's favorite bands. Rat.
Really?
Oh, yeah, she loves the 80s metal.
Dude, when I was a kid, the first time I heard Round and Round, I was taken for a spin for life,
It's a great song.
Fantastic song.
Great fucking song, man.
Yeah. I heard Beastie Boys track the other day called Flute Loops that I'd never been turned on to. It's like they have that one instrumental album that I've never really appreciated until recently. And I'm like, these guys just cared to enjoy themselves, and I think the more that we all, like you were talking about, inebriants play a certain factor in the creative process because they make us less jaded.
No, don't get inebriated.
Well,
Altered consciousness.
Altered consciousness.
There you go,
yeah. It plays a role in our own biases and jaded interpretation of ourselves. It's like, that idea sucks. Well, if you were willing to get past that idea sucks and just see the idea for what it is, that's that tadpole again. And you can nurse this thing to full life, and then it's something magnificent that you gave a chance to, rather than this side of ourselves that just wants to keep shooting ourselves down,
Trust your instincts. Feel the force, Luke. Trust your instincts.
For sure, brother. Well, on the way out, is there anything that you want to promote in addition to the beautiful Guitar Kingdom album, available wherever you want to stream right now?
I mean, not really, no. Just, if you're listening, just throw me in the mix on your Spotify or your Pandora or whatever, or your YouTube. Got a lot of videos. I've made an awful lot of videos, like proper videos, scripted videos. A lot of live stuff out there, Check it out.
Cool. Time to take the binge, everybody. Brother, thank you for all you do musically. Thanks for coming on today. It means the world.
My pleasure.
All right. Peace, players.
Thanks, man.